Check my speaker. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Judy.
Just
Hi,
wanted
Judy.
to make sure. Hi, I just want to make sure you could hear me. So, okay.
Did you put out a thing?
Mhm.
I think a lot of folks have the day off tomorrow also. Not me, but other people.
No, we don't have a day off either. Yeah, put in the
I
thing
get the
now.
feeling you never have a day off.
No.
No.
Rabbi Gans of blessed memory used to say, work hard, play hard. And I think he meant that play hard is also important for work. For work, get it? It's part of the work.
Well, it's true. You're more productive. They've done studies that people who take a break are actually end up being more productive because it's like a law of diminishing returns after a certain amount of hours of work. So, but they say taking a break, doing something fun and something with the
Yeah.
mind. Yeah.
So when you're I guess it could be either like a really good thing that there's meaning in your time away, but it could also be kind of pathetic that even your time away is oriented to work. So I guess it depends on how meaningful your work is, right?
How are you guys?
Hi, Mimi.
Doing good.
Hi.
How are you, Mimi?
Good, thank you.
Nice. Yeah, people will be coming on soon.
Yeah, so the classic Zoom word is, we'll just give a few minutes for people to join.
Mhm.
Put on WhatsApp
I did, yeah.
now.
I did it a few hours ago.
No, you have to do it now.
And
Just
peop-
resend it now.
I know, but then the people who said that they're not coming, like, they're just gonna be like, I told you I'm not coming.
Yeah, not too bad.
No, I sent it at 3:44.
I'm saying like it's a reminder for people to come now.
I know,
I forget.
I know.
You want me to send it to the group?
Sure.
Okay.
She'll send it to Cindy.
Good call.
That's just the families one, not to the broadcast one. Even though the broadcast one has 100 people on it.
We could do the same thing. The broadcast.
I know.
No, but it wouldn't be the same.
Why? Too bad, right?
Well, comes up as a text, so I suppose it would. Yeah.
Okay.
Whew, excuse me.
Thank you, Mimi.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's 8:35. We should start, right? Okay. Yeah.
Second. Yeah, apparently some people were having trouble with the link, so we're just going to work on that. And send that in the thingy also, because I'm sure there's a million other people who didn't get the same problem.
It's so weird. Is that you in the chat?
See?
Lisa. Is that what you posted in the chat?
I don't understand what you're asking. Oh,
Did you
someone's
post
chatting.
it?
No, I didn't do that.
Oh. Um,
Okay.
should
All
we
right,
start
we ready
now?
to start now?
Yeah, I think we can start now.
Okay, let's begin.
All right. I want to thank everyone who was able to join us this evening. I want to thank Judy Rosen for agreeing to share her story and expertise. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say, Judy. And I want to thank Rabbi Mendelson for joining us as well. Thank you for being here. This topic of inclusion is important, and I'm glad that we can at least have a small and short conversation about how and what inclusion means for our community. So without further ado, Judy. You're muted.
How about now?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that was locally muted is the problem. Thank you so much for having me here today. This is a topic I love talking about, and I'm looking forward to sharing my story a little bit with people and giving them some food for thought. So just to dive right in the interest of time, I am a social worker. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work at a federally qualified health center, and I help people that are referred to me by our doctors. That's what I do now. But I have ADHD, and I'm really lucky to be in the social work field because I can be totally open with the fact that I have ADHD. It's not something that I know is going to be stigmatized. I know it's, my boss isn't going to think of me differently. So I'm lucky in that sense. But there are other people with ADHD that unfortunately struggle with some of the symptoms and are afraid to say anything about it, and even afraid to ask for accommodations if they need it. And as a result, they may you'll hear about a lot of people with untreated ADHD that might drop out of school, that might go from job to job, and this is part of the reason, because unfortunately there's still stigma around it. My personal journey is I was diagnosed when I was 36. I'm 62 now. And I was a 3-pack a day smoker. And then I decided to quit. And up until that point, I was working as a computer consultant. I was doing fairly well. And when I quit smoking, my life just completely fell apart, I lost an important client file. I was getting calls from collection agencies because I, threw bills and didn't, go actually read them, but threw them to the side. And I just didn't, I had the anxiety that comes along with ADHD because of all these things falling apart. I felt very scattered. I would miss people's birthdays or be late to things, and then I would feel terrible, like I'm a horrible person. And late one night, I was watching Oprah, because they used to broadcast Oprah a second time, like at 1 o'clock in the morning. Typical ADHD person. Of course, I was up at 1 o'clock in the morning. And Oprah had Dr. Leonard Adler on her show to talk about adult ADHD. And I sat there listening and thought, wow, that's what I have. That's what I have. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a lazy person or inconsiderate person. Can't do anything right. It's not personality, if you will, but my brain works differently. So I actually, he is in New York, and I made an appointment with him the next day, for a few weeks later, and I was diagnosed by a psychiatrist that specializes in ADHD. He prescribed me medication. Interestingly enough, the medication he prescribed for me is Wellbutrin. And I don't know how many of you know much about Wellbutrin. Bupropion is what its generic name is, but it's also prescribed for people that are trying to quit smoking. And it's manufactured under the name Zyban. At the time, there wasn't a lot of research on it, but there's been more research since. And when you think about it, nicotine is a stimulant. What do they give kids for Ritalin? Stimulants. So I had been self-medicating from the time I was 14 years old till the time I was 36. And I think that's how I was able to still get through school, still get through work and things like that. But since I was treated and put on medication, worked with a therapist to get over the guilt and shame of having ADHD and missing appointments and all that stuff, because you develop a bad self-image because of it. And working with a coach, it just changed my life completely. And I feel very much now that I'm one of the, I thrive because of my ADHD. It's a matter of getting a handle on it. But since I've been in treatment, I've gone back to school, completed my bachelor's, completed my master's, started a whole new career. So for those of you that have, especially have children or grandchildren with ADHD, they are destined for greatness if you understand and harness their wonderful gifts. So before I finish, I wanted to also just point something out in terms of new research. There's a gentleman named Dr. Ned Hollowell, who's one of the original researchers and authors about ADHD. He wrote a very famous book called Driven to Distraction. And he now has a new book out, which I highly recommend, called ADHD 2.0. After I'm done speaking, I'll put a link in the chat. And he is proposing that we move away from ADHD and move away from seeing it as a disorder, but rather seeing it as a trait. And it's a variable attention trait syndrome. And because of that, wait, I think I said that wrong, variable attention trait. Because of that, you'll see with ADHD people that, you know, if it's boring, we ain't gonna do it. That's not gonna happen. But if it's interesting, oh, holy cow, we are there looking at it, micro-focusing, getting the job done. And so it's not so much a matter of we can't focus, we can't concentrate. It's that if it's not attention grabbing to us, we're not interested in it. And when you think about it, it is a trait. We have evolved as such, and probably in early societies, when we were more hunter-gatherers, the ADHD people, we were doing it because that's fast, that's quick, that's easy. Come on, let's get some food. We were great. Minute we started like farming, then we got in trouble because we can't plant crops, you know. So when I work with patients that have ADHD or are newly diagnosed, I tell them, listen, your house is burning down. You want one of us to come in because we're going to be right there, moving fast, getting it done, saving your life. Don't come to us to do your taxes. So, but you know, I mean, obviously there are people that can harness the gifts and do that. But I just wanted to share this aspect of it because I think we too often do look at it as a disorder rather than being neuroatypical. And if you have people in your life who have ADHD, there are wonderful ways to harness that thinking outside the box that we do, the ability to interact with people, solve problems, great in an emergency, you know, harness that and find the right type of work or career that or hobby that falls into, and be a little bit more understanding, because as part of inclusion, it's not something you can necessarily see, but it is something that does affect our lives. So I don't know what your plans are in terms of time. I'm open to questions if anyone has any. I don't know if we have time for that.
Thank you, Judy. That was really special. Yeah, if anyone has a question or two, I guess we can have a question for, if anyone has a question for Judy. Otherwise, Rabbi.
I'll ask a question. I think, Judy, in the past, it was punitive with students with ADHD, and they were put into special ed classes with other out-of-control kids.
Yeah.
So how can a teacher or a parent engage the person with ADHD without being punitive?
I think that's wonderful that you said that, and that I think that's what inclusion is all about. It's interesting because a lot of times creativity and intelligence accompany ADHD. So with children especially, obviously you do want to have them evaluated. The age that they start medication, you know, there's kind of differences of opinion on that. But one thing to think about doing is really keeping them engaged in extracurricular activities, whether it's, especially if it can be something physical. I was a dancer from the time I was 7 till the time I was 30. And I really do think that saved me a lot when I was a kid. Of course, that's why I started smoking, but that's another story. But we have to be skinny. Anything that you can do with a child, if they're into the arts, if they're into music, drama, any kind of sports, because when they get the energy out, it really is very, very helpful. And then talking to their teachers and being involved with them, because we do function best when, if we're doing something, I guess tedious or boring like homework can be, we do best if there is structure for us. So in other words, for kids, it's okay to make a schedule and make a time for homework, and to tell them it's time to do their homework, because they'll probably forget, or they'll probably pick up a more interesting book and get distracted. So it's okay to teach them really good study skills and get good habits going as soon as you can, so that they'll thrive in college and thrive when they get to work. Is that helpful?
Thanks so much, Judy.
Okay, you're welcome.
So I'm honored to be asked to talk about this important topic, especially, I've been invited to speak by many people who don't know me very well. So I always wonder if they know what they're in for. But in this case, I've been invited by one of the people who knows me best in the world. So that's a great vote of confidence. Thank you. I've been thinking about inclusion and what it means in the Jewish context and in the Torah context. And certainly, when we think about inclusion from the Torah point of view, we go right away to Rabbi Akiva's words. V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow as yourself, is the Kalal Gadol BaTorah, is the general rule of the Torah. It encompasses all of what Jewish teaching is there to offer, or all of what Jewish teaching invites us into. And I thought about what that means to say that V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving one's fellow person, is inviting us into all of Jewish teaching. I mean, it may be the most marketable aspect of Jewish teaching, but others would say that it actually isn't a Jewish teaching at all. It's a human teaching, and it doesn't require Torah. It doesn't require any kind of, there's nothing sublime about it. And in thinking about this more, I came to a mystical interpretation of this idea by Rabbi Shner Zalman of Liadi, later expounded upon by his descendant, Rabbi Shalom Ber. And in understanding the deeper and mystical and meditative aspect of inclusion, I also came to realize that this addresses a problem that sometimes comes up in the inclusion space, which is that efforts at inclusion, I guess there are two pitfalls in this. Either we aren't inclusive enough, or we can sometimes be inclusive in a way that's patronizing, in a way that highlights the weaknesses and flaws and difficulties that a person encounters. And so inclusion can sometimes be a magnifying glass on disability. And so this mystical view, this deeper view, understanding how love of one's fellow man is really a sublime teaching, I think might help to give a perspective that gets around that, or is higher than that. And it's as follows. First, we have to understand the mystical view of the entire world. So working on this in my ongoing meditation course now, shameless plug. If you want to join on Wednesday nights, hit me up for details. And in general, in our teaching lately, we've been focusing on this idea. What is the Jewish teaching about the whole world? It is that Hashem Echad, God is one, which means essentially that there is no space that isn't really within the divine reality. There is only two options. Either we see ourselves as separate and alone in the universe, or we see ourselves as part of the great orchestrated organized chaos the meaningful direction of the wholeness and totality of the universe. So to realize that I am that I am within the wholeness of the universe that has its own direction, purpose, and organization is to be within the divine reality. And the entire Torah is really helping us, inviting us into the divine reality in which we see ourselves and our fellow people not as separate animals, each struggling against our own problems, but all of us part of a sublime divine organism. And that all of us, this whole existence, is only here as a divine choice of one. That is, we are all part of one. We are all part of the same divine choice. So that being the case, so we got that idea. We are all part of the one. And that's what Jewish teaching is inviting us into. So then, when we think about what inclusion means, as long as I am alone or ignoring my fellow human being, I am disconnected from the truth of the universe. Or in the positive sense, the way in which I become most connected with the divine reality is when I am connected as much as possible with those around me. And I see myself as in concert with them. And so this then when I look at a fellow human being with their idiosyncrasies, with their differences, and each of us have our differences, as you said, Judy, I am not looking at another human being as a problem to fix or as a helpless person to step up for. I am rather opening myself up to truly be connected with those around me in the fullness of their experience and the fullness of what I can offer them. So then I'm not looking at a person with a disability as a problem. I am simply understanding how I fit in with them in a helping and connecting way. And so this is a connection not of fixing or even helping, it's a connection of truly sublime love and cosmic connectedness. This also relates to what we're going to be reading in the Torah this week, and I'll conclude with this. We're going to be reading about the half shekel and how how we were all invited to give or commanded to give a half shekel to the building of the temple and to the building of the tabernacle. And this says that we are truly only part of reality as long as we're alone, but together, all of these half shekels, when they're joined together in one service, make the temple the sanctuary for the divine, make the world to manifest and to demonstrate and to show the divine reality that is really out there. That's all I got.
That was really beautiful. Thank you for sharing. It's such an honor to have Rabbi Mendelson. He's a sought after speaker, and I'm glad I didn't have to think very long and hard about who can be somebody who is going to give over a meaningful message that is engaging and really relevant and something to think about in a very practical way. And I love that, Judy, your story just fits right in, and I love the theme that we have going on here, and I'm grateful for your friendship, Judy. We've known each other for a long time, so this just feels really really complete and really perfect to have the three of us here and all of our friends who are able to join this evening, and anyone else who will hopefully hear the recording at some time in the future, to be able to benefit from our inclusion tonight.
Judy, we actually know you from before you're a social worker, so we go that way back. Yeah,
You go back to
what-
Detroit, I think that far
that's
back.
also true. We go even, yeah.
Yes,
it-
but
since-
I
since
put
before
a,
my bar mitzvah.
yes, that's right. I put a link for everyone. I put a link to the article, an article by Dr. Hallowell in Attitude Magazine about this new way of looking at ADHD that I think you'll find very interesting. So then I put a link in the chat.
Thank you. If anyone is interested in the link that Judy provided, so it's in the chat, you can click on it. I just want to end off by saying that inclusion starts with I.
Yeah, especially when we think about the divine reality, right? This model of inclusion says, if it's not about fixing or helping someone with a problem, it's about truly being one with everything. The oneness with everything starts with myself, and I have to include myself and embrace the fullness of myself, not just out of selfish self-love, but out of selflessness for the divine reality that's choosing me into existence in this moment. And that gives a whole richness to the words v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your fellow as you love yourself,
Right.
because truly we are both part of the same divine reality. Mm-hmm.
So thank you everyone for joining. This was really great. And I wish everyone a wonderful week, an enjoyable President's Day weekend if you're doing something special. And look out for another program that we'll be doing in the near future.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
joining.
much.
Thank
for doing
you.
this.